on that, and then you feel, oh, that wasn't what I enjoy, or oh my God, changed again. And I wasn't aware of that. And now that there is a competition between this technology that I learned and new one, what can I do? Keeping that constant 4 different things up to date and open that you keep thinking and dropping and bringing another one up. That's been my way of keeping myself sure at the top of technology. I never claim that I'm good at everything that's coming up, but I can claim that at least I know a little bit of everything, and I pick one to get deeper when it's the right thing for me. And I think it's working.
Is your role fairly technical right now, or now it's more at the higher level?
At this moment, my role is actually quite technical at the level that I sometimes have to go and look at the code and come back, but it's not something that can be sustainable. You have to have the balance. You can't run an organization as big and then become on the floor, but you have to be able to talk to your staff. You have to be able to sit with anybody, and that's my belief. Doesn't matter how up the ladder I've been in my career, 5 levels below me or 2 or 1. I always want to be able to talk to my team that are hands-on, because they want to know that I know. They want to know that I care. They want to know that I have the same language of them. If they talk about the program in Python or C# or Java, it doesn't matter much, but the technology that they are building, the solution that they are putting together, the blueprint that they want to put, at least I should be able to say, there is something that I can add value in. And I think it's a responsibility that I have to keep. But that's why I keep myself on top of things at that level. And I think it's important for anyone in any level of leadership to stay in touch with your team as close as you can.
Where do you put the soft skill? Because one of the things that actually I advocate for is a lot of engineers, a lot of tech talents, they are fantastic engineers. They're amazing when it comes to actually doing the code or doing the job. But when they need to communicate the results to the business partners, or they need to really translate, or they need to actually tell a story of what this means, that's where I think that for a lot of engineers and tech talent, it's an area that it could be definitely improved on. So, and a lot of stuff that I have talked about in the past, I emphasize a lot on the soft skill and how do we do that, and how do we actually improve our storytelling skill set, as well as our technical skill set. So I think you would probably agree that this would be a good complementing skill.
I can't say anything other than your technology. Yeah, it's a very sharp piece that you need to have, but you need the handle. You can't take the sharp piece and go. And the soft skill of ours at any level, again, it doesn't matter. And I'm very cautious about how I look at things, because for me everything is a network. It's not a ladder. And I'm being careful about how I'm communicating now. To you, left and right, up and down, your surroundings need a tissue to communicate with you. And that technology piece that you build and grow will make you sharper and sharper and more stronger in your area needs that softer skill. You think about it, you want to build a team, you need to build a culture. You want a successful team, that culture should be very, very solid. For that, you need soft skills. And you have to grow the team to have the same soft skills. With brilliant, smart people, you may be able to deliver the best solution, but I don't ever saw it sustainable if the people are not connected in that solution together, and personalities are actually very clashing. So everything is about the culture. Culture needs your soft skill, and you have to hand it on to the next. And your staff, your people, your leaders in your organization, leaders of leaders in your organization, everybody should sing on the same song. And that's where a company can sustain for cultural control differences. Is making a big role in it.
We're kind of like running out of time, but I've got two questions for you.
Okay.
One is
try to be short.
One is a surprise question for you.
Okay.
But something that I'm sure a lot of us would love to know is, what is your advice, or what are your advices for a lot of younger people who wanted to climb the corporate ladder, which I know that you don't believe in the ladder, but I don't know what other, maybe it's like a team ladder that everyone could go together. That would probably work, but I'm just trying to visualize something that is a ladder, but it's sort of like a team kind of concept.
I call it network of influence.
Good.
So, you know what, have a chat with yourself. Why do you want to go up the ladder? Make sure you understand, why are you trying to get that up there? Is that money? Is that title? Is that influence? Is that impact? What is it that you're after? And try to fight the fact that if you are not up the ladder, you can't have an influence. Fight that battle. And maybe I'm just being too lucky to be in an organization that they want to prove that the empowering employees and people are not about where they sit in the organization ladder. But I think you will find that a lot more successful when you find the reason behind why you want to go up the ladder. And when you get that, then you know where to go for that reason to succeed. If it's money, it's easier. If it's title, it's clear. If it's just you really want to have influence and make an impact, that's become challenging. Because not everywhere you can get that opportunity, but when you do it, it's very visible. Very, very visible. I have actually witnessed a case that an employee brand new to the country, brand new to the company, very, very simply added to the organization as a junior resource, made such a huge impact to the organization, the solution that we had to build, that there was no reason and there was no way that could hide the fact that this person is actually not a junior person. We need to grow her to the board in a place that she can impact others and make more powerful decisions to do the things that is right for them. So I believe in being honest with ourselves and make that clear where we want to get to. And from there, then I don't have much of advice if somebody just want to do it because it's a good money. Sorry. For people who are really looking for title and, you know, making sure that they go up the ladder through the title because title matters and they believe influence comes with it. The thing I can tell you is that if you really believe in this, there are so many organizations that they have that culture. You will definitely find a place. But for those kind of culture, your fight challenge will be very different. As a woman, you will have a tougher place. Getting a sponsor, getting a coach, especially understanding the business side of the organization you're in, understanding the customer view of the organization you're in will help you grow that ladder, go up the ladder faster. If you're looking for influence and impact, you know what? Get the job done. Just do it. I love that. Like, just do it, and it's gonna be visible, and you will get what you want, and you will be appreciated. I believe that.
So for the surprise question, you got a choice. So one is share a fun fact about yourself.
I'm not funny.
Or talking about work-life balance, if you believe in that balance, if you do not believe in balance, you believe in juggling, or you believe in prioritization.
Okay.
You get to choose which question you want to answer.
I don't have a funnier story. So I stuck with the second question. Do I believe in life-work balance? Yes, I do. Why not? Honestly, who was the new guy said that there should be an integrated life work something. Is that, I think it's an Amazon CEO.
I think the last I heard was depending on what stage of life you're at, that's what you're going to focus on, and that's what's your.
So I believe in life work balance, but the balance that I talk about is yours. Again, have a conversation with yourself. Your balance is just spend 10 hours a day at work and 5 hours at home. Fine. If your balance is half and half, fine. If you have babies at home, you have to stay home, fine. I think the balance is yours. And I think it's important to have the balance. And especially, I have been very supportive of guys taking that opportunity for themselves as well, because we talk about it and it mostly looks like we women need that because life needs us more. But honestly, with the support of guys this generation and the way they work, I think I would be very sorry to see my husband's company doesn't support his balance of life and work. So I believe in it, but I think it's individual choice, and make sure that you feel comfortable. Don't let anything be forced on you. I don't think it's going to be sustainable for sure.
Would love to continue this conversation, Leyla. This was awesome. But we are unfortunately out of time. So we have a Q&A now. We have a mic set up, or you're okay.
cute. Thank you so much.
Thanks again.
Thank
If you
you.
find out what's in there, I would like to see a picture of that with you.
This one. Do you know that I don't drink?
There's other stuff in there as well.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay. We've got more exciting stuff coming. So how was that? How do you rate this conversation? 5 out of 5? Yay! Come on, I need more energy. I'm about to actually introduce a professor, an innovator, researcher, an MIT professor. God, I'm like shaking now. But please join me in welcoming Hossein Rahnama. So, Hossein is the CEO and founder of Flybits, which I'm sure he'll give you a little bit of background what Flybits does. And also, he's the co-founder of DMZ at Ryerson. He teaches at Ryerson at MIT, and he's actually been named one of Canada's he was recognized as one of Canada's top 40 under 40. So we are very glad that you accepted our invitation, and we can't wait to hear more about you and Flybits. So come on out.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's a great event, and very pleased to meet some of you during the reception. What I'd like to do is to tell you a little bit about Flybits, how it started, how it moved from a research paper into a company, and then maybe it's best to kind of turn this into more like a conversation rather than going through a presentation. For those of you interested in wireless networks, there's a huge challenge because my laptop is all the way to the back, and I got to rely on Bluetooth to see if my clicker works. So if it doesn't work, then we're just going to turn it into a conversation. So I live in this paradox of academia and entrepreneurship. I teach at Ryerson, spun off Flybits when it was a thesis into a company, and it started to grow. And for me and my founding team, it was very interesting to see how you bring these two colliding worlds together. One of them is academia, very much input-driven. The other one is a startup that we need to keep growing. Usually, you decide to separate these two, but what we noticed over the past few years was that there's actually a lot of synergy between the two if you manage to create a symbiosis between them. So let me tell you a little bit about Flybits and what it is, some of the work that we are doing, and then I try to kind of wear a more like a research lens and an entrepreneurial lens around it. If you look at the consumer sector, if you have an iPhone or an Android, I don't think anyone is using a flip phone here. So probably you have seen these next generation predictive services on your mobile devices. Siri on Apple, Google now on Android, probably you have seen Alexa. So these are what's going to happen in the consumer world. Now, what about the big enterprise? A lot of them are thinking, leveraging AI and machine learning to make their channels predictive. And they think that through the research that they do, that AI will get commercialized and it's going to make their work easier or their channels more predictive. Now, our observation was AI is becoming more like an interdisciplinary phenomenon. A lot of the AI that we are currently using and working with is almost 40, 50 years old. It's just the ecosystem that is ready to adopt it. We have a lot of compute power. The phone that you have in your pocket is about 500 times more powerful than the mainframes of the 70s. You have a lot of storage power. You have a lot of interconnection between people. And every tap that you make on your phone is generating a footprint, meaning data, which is basically a key instrument for leveraging AI. So instead of looking at AI in a more algorithmic computer science phenomenon, we are starting to looking at it as a more like a creative discipline, bringing people from design, media, sociology, anthropology, and then combining them with the skill sets of a data scientist and a computer scientist to really focus on experience design. So the market is also becoming more educated on AI and these types of predictive services. Probably we have heard about IoT devices like alarm clocks that can wake us up based on our schedules and sleep patterns. Some of you may have heard about coffee machines that can change the intensity of your espresso based on how stressed you are. Or apps that can notify you if your bus or train is running late. But the problem up until now has been, oh, I have to go build an app. Oh, I have to introduce a new multi-million-dollar project in my organization. The paradigm of designing for AI is also changing. So one of the key things that we are working on within Flybits and within my research group is to really build tools that people outside the data science discipline can build these services on their own. We saw that, some of you may remember, that late 90s, web development and web design was more or less a software engineering set of tasks. Then you started to see web authoring tools, Front Page, Dreamweaver, and then you had portals like WordPress. So it started to shift from more like a software engineering-led practice to more like a creative practice. We think in the next 5 to 10 years, the same thing will happen around this notion of AI, which of course means different things to different people. So I want to kind of share our views on that as well. So very quickly, what we do at Flybits, we allow you to bring a lot of data from different sources, whether it's a sensor, whether it's a mainframe, it could be a CRM platform, a social media platform. And without you worrying about the contracts of structures of these data sets, we give you these visual Lego-like structures that you can quickly connect them together and build an experience with. And then we give you the ability to activate it on a web channel, on a native app channel, on a voice-based system like Alexa, without really worrying about, oh, these APIs need to talk to those APIs, and here is the data contract or the privacy contract that we got to use. All of them is being done on a visual fashion. So we are seeing that a lot of organizations are trying to adopt those models. Close to home, just to give you some practical examples, how many of you here are TD users or TD customers? Okay, so if you use their app, it's all powered by Flybits. It understands the context around the user, and it starts to give you services that are very relevant to the end user. There are about 2 million people using this service now across Canada. So for example, on the core banking services, if I have a mortgage that is up for renewal, and I am passing by a branch and the branch happens to have a mortgage specialist available at that time, I receive a message on my device inviting me to go to the branch to renew my mortgage. If you visit a lot of open houses, we understand that, and then we give you a pre-approved mortgage offer. We upsell and cross-sell different types of credit cards based on travel patterns and what you may need at an airport. But the unique thing that I really liked about this bank was that how many of you heard about the term smart cities? It was a big term that was tried to be coined by big guys like IBM and Schneider Electric and Cisco, but almost all of them had to close down those units or shrink them because their thinking was suddenly my city will become very smart, and I'm going to have one channel like an app that the citizens can walk around and they will receive relevant services on their channels. We never thought that a bank can actually be a perfect driver of a smart city. So with these ones, how many of you take Go Transit here? Perfect. So if you're a TD user, they use machine learning without really looking at identifiable information. They figure out your commute pattern, and without you telling them, oh, whether you're on the Richmond Hill line or the Mississauga line, they actually update you on platform delays or platform changes. So that's purely based on some of our machine learning capabilities looking at commute patterns and corridor patterns. But the question you may ask is, why? Why would a bank do such a thing? You can go download the Go Transit app, different story whether it's a good app or not, use their website. But why would I use my banking app to do that? Well, the thinking is the power of data, the power of machine learning. So what they do now, they are Let me just go to the next set of slides. They are correlating that data on a non-identifiable fashion with the transaction data that they have from you. And with a very high degree of possibility, they can predict purchase patterns in the Greater Toronto area. So this is a real-time view of downtown Toronto, Richmond Hill, and Mississauga. So you can select positions of interest, such as its importance. For those of you who are not from Canada, that's a very important thing here. Starbucks, all the competing branches, McDonald's, and then you can select that point of interest and see roughly how many people, how many TD users may actually show up there tomorrow and make X amount of purchase. So the way we look at data and AI is that, first of all, you need to have a service that is useful to the end user. There's no such a thing as, oh, I do some AI here. It has to be part of an ecosystem. Then what types of data sets you're bringing to understand the user and then intervene and generate some sort of a recommendation for them. The other types of services that we have seen in terms of how data is changing business models is in the asset management space. Frankly, when I started Flybits, I had no interest in selling to banks. So we started applying our technology to all sort of verticals, and especially in Canada, we realized that probably banking is not a bad sector. They have a lot of data. They want to partner with fintechs. So a lot of our focus now is on the financial sector. So this is an example of how we use data in a more like a social network structure. If you think about a classic wealth bank, a lot of the revenue is being generated using service fees. Now, this bank in the US came to us and said, our new generation of customers are millennials. We want to introduce a model that is not necessarily based on the old model of generating service fees, but we want to connect people together. So the model was that, hey, I have baby boomers, probably a lot of them made their money, and they are in a state that they want to become a philanthropist or they want to give back. At the same time, I want to invite my next generation customers, which are people like you, like the next generation millennials, and I want to connect these two social profiles together. And that network effect will start to create a lot of value for me around the bank. So I'm now reintroducing new business models rather than, committing to the classical, service fee-based models. We do a lot of work with MasterCard globally. I don't want to bore you with that. They are working with a lot of merchants. This deployment is in Australia, that you can identify if someone has a particular credit card on a sunny day. If they are in the 100 meters of a merchant, you can give them an offer through a banking service and then learn from their behaviors. But all of these things that I'm showing you is being done while the privacy of the customer is protected. For those of you interested in data science, there are lots of new techniques that you can use to increase the functionality without creating a trade-off between functionality and privacy. GDPR is something that many of you may be interested in. In the UK, there is a directive called PSD2. So that's an area that if you're interested, there is a lot of potential of career growth there. Now, very quickly, I want to share our view on AI, which, like most AI things, there is a bias into it, but we can share it. Most Persian entrepreneurs that I work with, they buy the technique in AI called fuzzy logic. They think that's the best thing. How many of you used fuzzy logic? Perfect. So that's a great way, but it's not the only way. University of Toronto has a bias around reinforcement learning. Columbia has a different bias. But the thing about AI is that you need to bring them all together, right? There's no one type of AI. So depending on the situation or the context of the user, you need to have a different AI. So let me share our view with you on that. A lot of the work that we do is around this notion of semantic mapping and ontology. So think about it. If you're a banking user, your expectation from your phone when you're at home is very different than when you're traveling or when you're at work or when you go to a branch. Just knowing your location is not enough to increase the impact of that experience. you really need to know, hey, what would a student do when he or she enters the first week of a fresh week? How would I adapt the experience like that? That's the area that we call it semantic computing, and we use a lot of that to understand the logic around AI. So if you go from Yorkdale Mall to Union Station, what is the relationship between two? So we have people in the smart city space and research who are looking at that space. Then, without scaring you with these molecular structures, we do things such as routing the right AI to the right container or machine. So for example, if you want to give a credit card to a first-year university student, risk is a very important context. If you use neural network, that's actually a terrible idea because neural nets are built to optimize decision-making. However, if you want to cross-sell and upsell a product, that's the type of machine learning to use. So if you're a large company, if you're a Fortune 100, how do you build an infrastructure that as new AI and modeling capabilities become available, you can just plug them into your infrastructure? I love what big companies do, like IBM with Watson, Salesforce with Einstein, but if you commit your infrastructure to them, you're locking your modeling for the years to come. However, if you look at the state of AI now, at its best, it's animal instinct. It's give me a lot of data, let me do a lot of try and error to figure out if this is going to be the right answer. A lot of the new AI capabilities are not invented yet. There are cognitive models, there are new models. But as a company who want to build competitive advantage, how do you build infrastructures like these that as they become available, you can just plug them in? It helps the procurement, it helps the integration, it helps the scalability. So a lot of our team members are now looking at models instead of creating a fight between University of Montreal and University of Toronto and MIT that, oh, I do it better than you. You really need to think about AI as an ecosystem, right? Bring the best of all of them and route the inference to the right node when you need it. I want to kind of give you a bit of a research flavor of what we do, but please keep me on time. I don't want to go off tangent. When we talk about AI or when we talk about contextualization, usually what comes to mind is that, oh, it has to be an SMS channel, a push notification channel, an app channel. That can completely change in the coming years. The ergonomics and the HCI or the UI models are also changing. So many of you may have heard about augmented reality, generating these overlays on a camera view. The problem with augmented reality is that you see these big spikes. How many people here play Pokemon Go? Good. And it dies down. Why? Because it starts to get boring very quickly. It gives the same thing to everyone all the time. It misses context. So what we did, let's say with a bank in the UK, is that now you can scan your plastic card. We understand the context around you, and we generate a lot of banking information for you using augmented reality. Now, you can apply that to all sort of verticals. You can apply that for learning. Imagine I'm reading a book. You know, we have all seen boring textbooks. But imagine I have a lens that I can look at that subject and get an overlay that is relevant to me. That's a new way of interacting between the digital world and the physical world. We do a lot of work in mobile payments. You know, you can tap your mobile wallet, like similar to how you use Apple Pay or Google Pay, and then we recommend what card to use that increases your chance. It can also go beyond other channels, like it can go to robotics. So this is a project we did that with Discovery Channel, that we trained a robot. The one on the left is Arman, one of our great Persian engineers. He trained the robot to understand the social semantics around it. So we brought the robot to our lab at Ryerson. The robot identified everyone and it started dancing. Then we moved the robot to the food court across the street. It did not recognize the people. It sat down and cried. It pretended that it cried. So this is an example that a lot of the things that I showed you that usually shows up on a two-dimensional display like your phone on your or monitor, it can also go into multi-dimensional. It can be seen as in a robot. It can be manifested through robot interaction, and think about the potential in customer service in the future. Prince Charles came to Canada about 5 years ago, and one of our tasks was to train a robot to recognize him and welcome him to Canada. Talking about a stressful day at work, it worked. I'm glad it worked, but it was a stressful day because we had to feed about 100 portrait images of Prince Charles to this robot with the hope that the training is good enough for the face to be detected. So those are some examples. Now, the last set of things that I want to talk about, which is very interesting for those of you who are entrepreneurs and are thinking about the next generation of your business, is the driver of the decentralization of the internet. Unfortunately, there is a lot of buzzword in the market: blockchain, AI, machine learning, IoT. These are all essentially, if you combine them together, you can build a very good transaction medium. So far, we have been very good in building a communication medium. It's amazing. It's fantastic. You can do HD video conferencing, multi-point video conferencing between continents. But is it secure, right? Do I need to dump my data into one location before I can leverage it? So if you think about blockchain, machine learning, IoT, edge computing, and use a variance of these and bring them together, you can build a very successful transaction medium. And that can be a driver of many successful startups that are going to emerge in the new years. So I want to show you some examples of that after. I'm sure many of you use Twitter. I'm going to ask that question. But let's say if we go to the Twitter feed of Persian women in tech, if we go to their hashtag or use their handle, we will see the same thing. So about 5 years ago, with my colleagues and my founding team, we introduced something with Vodafone called the lens. So instead of using a hashtag, you can basically use a curly bracket. And when you connect to the curly bracket, you will see information that is relevant to you. Because let's say if I am a speaker at Persian Women in Tech, probably I'm looking for more information rather than someone else who's visiting. How do I prioritize information? That was part of the pattern that we did. And in the UK, we launched a social network that instead of you, let's say, relying on Yelp or on Yellow Pages and Google Places, you could basically receive recommendations from your friends. So let's say if I arrive in San Francisco, I immediately get a bunch of lenses from my friends who have been there, and I can look at San Francisco from their point of view. I can see that when Leyla was walking on the street, she was listening to this music on Spotify. So you can start to use that decentralization to build your own network of recommendation and collective intelligence. We did this with celebrities. So, celebrities could share their pathways with others, and people could really follow their path instead of relying on a centralized repository like Google. And the last project that reporters really love to talk about it is a project that I'm currently working on at MIT that they refer to it as augmented eternity. So what that is, well, think about it. We are generating gigabytes of information on a daily basis. The likes we have on Facebook, the posts we have on Instagram, the emails we send, the Skype calls we make. If you think AI requires that data to become more intelligent, it's absolutely right. The question is that who owns that information? How AI or Google to own and access and model and mine that information? So one thing that we built is this decentralized identity management tool. If you use your Siri, for example, now, you're essentially asking a voice assistant and you're consulting algorithms that are learned in a supervised fashion in the past. Imagine that instead of asking Siri, I am a student and I need to consult an IP lawyer. And I know if I want to go and hire that lawyer, it's probably expensive. But what if the lawyer has given me access to his or her avatar as a knowledge base, and I can activate that avatar on my Siri and ask a question? And with a very high degree of possibility, I can give you an answer, whether on a conversational interface, whether on a voice bot or Alexa or Google Home, which is very close to the answer that that person would have given. This is very relevant in industries that the knowledge is very pattern-based. For example, law, medical, some of the medical services. So that way you can mine the data to create these decentralized recommendation engines. And one thing that one of my students did is to build a project on top of this with a mindset that, hey, there is a philanthropy in every single one of us. Philanthropy is very much limited to very, very few people in this world. How can I leave a legacy behind if I'm no longer around? Can I train my software agents using a blockchain? I don't trust Google, I don't trust Facebook, my own blockchain. So when no longer I'm alive, my daughters can now consult with me. Not necessarily I make decisions for them, but I really create this effective, empathetic, conversation with them. So that's something that is more on the research side. We are building a framework out of that to really support entrepreneurs and researchers to come up with new services on that. So that's all I wanted to share with you. Few observation. Data is extremely important in the world of AI. So without data, there's no AI. And AI is also very interdisciplinary. So if you want to become a successful entrepreneur, if you're an engineer, go hire a designer. If you're a business expert, really go and find complementary skill sets. So thanks again for having me. Really appreciate it. This is my great team. The recruiting task here. If you're interested in some of these, please send us an email and we would love to chat.
Thank you so much, Professor Rahnama. Really appreciate it. This was so insightful. We'll take 2 questions. We only have time for 2 questions. If you have any question, please raise your hand. Similar concept. Any question for Professor? Always like a first, let's give a thank you to Professor.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Persian Women in Tech, we're so grateful. Thank you for taking the time. I've seen your presentation a few times, and every time I think I see you, you've added new products in the line, and you keep impressing us. Thank you so much. Thank you.
do, we thought about a really fun thing to do. We want to do a selfie, so we are actually going to come downstairs, and if you guys can get up, and the photographers can go there, we can take an entire selfie of the group. Does that sound cool? Yeah? Yeah. So let's do that. If I can get the speakers in the front, the team, everybody, let's do a selfie. All right. Let's get close. Awesome. Let us know what to do. Whatever you're ready. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you so much to Thomson Reuters, our speakers. As a community, as everyone mentioned, we are relying on you. So if you're interested in hosting our events at your company, at your offices, you can email us at toronto@persianwomenintech.com, and they can provide you with more information on how you can be involved and support this organization. If you want to be involved in other ways, I didn't mention Golpar. Golpar, are you here somewhere? So Golpar reached out to me a long time ago, and she's actually part of the company and what she does is she's part of the team that does our website as a volunteer. So as you can see around the world, everyone is supporting us in some ways in making sure that our organization, which is a nonprofit, is existing and supporting the community, because it is by the community for the community. Thank you. And I think Leyla wanted to give a closing keynote.
We love action items, don't we? Like, we're not leaving here without action items. So the takeaway that I want all of you to take with you is declaring the intention of support. So we all intentionally decide that we wanted to help our community in any shape or form. You pick the way that you can contribute and stick to it, but just have that intention and declare it. Mentor, coach, train, support, network. And that's what we're going to do in the next half an hour, that there is going to be alcohol. So it's a fantastic networking opportunity as well. Hiring more women. So for those of us that are people manager, ask for enough resumes of women before making decisions. I think we lost some of the crowd due to alcohol, unfortunately, but I want all of you to pass this message to whoever is hiring, that you need to have enough resumes of women at the table before making a final decision. And leveling the playing field. So there's still a wage gap between women and men. If you're hiring managers, you need to make sure that you're paying your staffs equally. We are really 2019 now. So that wage gap hopefully will get finished.